Yo, what's up, guys? We back. Still at Ioba hackathon, gaming hackathon, 2023, and with me I have Nabeel and Jamie. Yes, they are from Loop, and they are basically trying to digitize the taxi industry or the mobile taxi industry. The minibus industry, to be correct. But I'm going to give you guys a platform to better describe your company and how it fits into what we're doing here today.
Cool. You want to go for it? Sure. Cool. So, just to give a background on how this actually works, and this came about of looking at the problem of the minibus taxi industry and transport and mobility as a whole. If I need to take a taxi, I know I stand on the road, and a taxi will show up if I'm on the right road, right? I don't know when, I don't know who, I don't know if it's going to be an actual taxi. Sometimes on the street, we've heard horrible stories of people getting into a taxi, and it wasn't a taxi, they get dropped. The driver has the same issue. They know they must drive on this road, but they don't know where the customer is. And sometimes they stand on one side of the corner and miss the customer. So that's a big problem. The other problem is cash. And we use cash all the time, but we migrate into digital. For a commuter, they have to draw money from an ATM because the money's in the bank accounts, and come and pay cash by the taxi, but don't come with big numbers or issues. Or we've all been in situations sometimes, unless you're lucky, you didn't sit in the front seat, but you must count. And you must do the maths. Yeah, you just did a long day of work. Now you have to do all the taxi maths. And those are issues from the customer's point of view. It's also the thing of safety. Carrying cash is a safety risk. If you have to draw the money transfer money for the week and you get robbed, you can't come to work for the rest of the week, can't come to campus, or can't, like, the trauma of going through those things. For a taxi driver, there's also an issue. So Nabeel's dad owns taxis, and his grandfather was the head of association. I'm telling you your story now. And his brother, Imtiaz Riley, who's the CEO of Loop, came to me a while ago and said, he told me one of the stories where his dad would call him 9:30 in the morning and say, come stand outside. And with a taxi full of people, give him a bag of money and say, put this money in the cupboard. He didn't understand at the time why his father was doing this, but realizing that in Cape Town, and we know in Joburg, in Durban, taxi drivers are driving to gangster-ridden areas. Yeah. And after earning the mornings, like you get a lot of money in the morning and the evenings, the peak volume. If you got robbed, that's your day's money. So carrying cash around for a driver is also high risk. But why are we doing that when we have these digital platforms? We can just send money around. So cash is the issue. Then the last one that we're looking at is the accountability. If you lose something in the taxi, tough luck for you. If something goes wrong, who do you tell? You can't tell the police, you can't tell anybody. So there's a whole issue of accountability on the space of how do you know this is a good or bad driver? But then from the driver's side, when it comes to accountability, there's financial exclusion. Because they're working in cash, they can't go to a bank and say, I need a loan. Banks going to tell them, where's your records? You're going to have to just live at the back of someone's house or do something, or work your way up, or do some savings. And then from the financial exclusion side, it's a case of, if I need money now, I need to go to a loan shark. Borrow 200 rand, pay back at 300 rand. So the people that need the money the most are getting exploited. There's no UIF, there's no retirement fund. You literally have to drive taxi until you die, or nothing else. We had one of our taxi drivers, he came in and the one side of his arm was burnt, like an old guy. And he knows that I must drive taxi every day. If tomorrow I stop, there's no food on the table. Yeah. So it's a bad cycle. And what we've done at Loop, we've understood what all the issues are in the ecosystem. We're trying to understand those issues and then look at which ones of these issues can we solve. So geolocation, for finding the customer, we've got that. You're able to now know exactly where you are and where the taxi driver is. So now we can link them up together. So there's no guesswork of how long must I stand outside in the rain. Now it's winter time. When it comes to cashless payments, we've built a system using text where I'm able to load funds, what we call Loop Money, and you can use Loop Money to pay the driver instantly. And we had to research, has people done this before? Has people made payment methods before? Because it's not a new thing. And we understood that people tried before us, but the reason why it failed is they didn't understand the taxi driver. A taxi driver gets their money today cash, right? They have to put in fuel today. They have to pay their boss today, and they have to go home today and buy food for their family. And when the banks tried to do this, they said, yeah, you go use our payment methods. We have bank cards. We'll give you a point-of-sale device. But you must wait 2 days for your money. Bro, in 2 days, your business is gone. And then there's also margins, transaction fees on top of that. Because other people from outside came into the industry thinking, we're going to make money from this. Whereas Loop's trying to say, we see what the problem is, how do we solve the problem first? And we're going to figure out later what we're going to do to make money out of it. And that's what we're doing. And from the accountability side, because we have these digital transactions, we're able to keep a ledger of the drivers. I know people ask, oh, taxi drivers are don't want this, they want to pay tax. The tax they pay to the gangsters is way more than what they're going to pay SARS. So that's already out of the question. But also the financial inclusion you gain to be able to sort your life out, grow a family, that's much more valuable than tax. And honestly speaking, we're not SARS, we're building the tech. And what you as a person does with that information is up to you, whether you want to do things or not. But we're not the ones that's going to say, you must take a cut to SARS now. So there isn't a situation of that on our side. It's more a case of how do we enable drivers? How do we make safer commutes? How do people find their customers, their passengers, their drivers? And then we in 2023, bro, like we can do the digital payments. It's easy. The way we've done it on our side by being text-based, that we keep a ledger on our back end of how much loop money a customer has and how much loop money a driver has. So when the customer has to pay the driver, the money goes immediately. The driver gets to see immediately when the customer pays, money's in. And the driver can then choose, keep the money, spend the money, do what they want with the money, buy other products or value-added services from the money. And that's what we've built on our side. We've got quite a strong team. We've active in Cape Town. We're going to be doing a new area takeover soon, which will be the first area that's going to be, or maybe I shouldn't say this because we haven't done the press release yet, but keep it on lowdown. Big things are happening. Maybe give you guys an exclusive. The tie-in with Ayoba and the gaming event, I'm a gamer myself. Nabeel's a gamer. I think we've got a few gamers in our team. So we appreciate what games do. Games stimulate thought, games stimulate discussion. Games also helps you, people don't realize this, but it helps you think and solve problems. You're solving problems in that game, and the big thing is how to solve problems. What Ayoba has done on their platform, they've got a good user base, and they have a data-free service with MTN. And being a super app, you're able to do things on their platform. And one of the things you can now do is order a taxi using Ayoba with Loop. So you can go onto the system and get a micro app, get the Loop micro app, and it works. And the fantastic thing with this, it was why I think the other games are here as well. Ayoba's platform is so fantastic. It was so easy to do. And what I love about Ayoba, setting these things up creates that inclusion. Because there's people that might not have the best devices or the best connection to the internet, but now they're also being included to get a good life, It's small problems, getting somewhere, mobility. It's a small problem, but it affects 15 million people a day in South Africa. So yeah, I know I talk a lot.
No. That's fine. It gives me a broad range of questions to ask you. So I would say, you are solving a very interesting problem, and a problem that, is something that we know growing up in the township is a problem for everyone. Waking up in the morning, it's dark, you need to go to work. How long you spend there at the corner waiting for a taxi determines, anything that can happen to you. So I like, that type of problem solving from the application that you guys are building, and solving the math problem. In terms of building this platform, what were some of the challenges that you guys experienced?
Look, I think for me, the biggest challenge is people must understand what we're trying to do. So we're not trying to interfere with the taxi, minibus industry's day-to-day operation and what they do. We're merely providing a service to them, a tech service to them to improve their business. So it's easy for us to get riders, to join our platform, but the drivers and owners are more hesitant because they don't fully understand what it is we're actually there to do. I'm gonna hand it over to Jamie if there's anything.
What I want to mention from the driver's side, the hesitation comes in by being misinformed, whereas we have drivers knocking on our door every day when they actually hear what we do. We're our office is in Woodstock on the main road, and drivers are coming through trying to want to work with us. And where that comes in is also the case of us understanding that drivers need to generate more revenue. The reason why they want to work with us isn't because it's just about solving problems, but their driver as a driver is how do I make more money. So what we've done on our side, we have two parts of the business now, is that we digitalize the taxi for normal minibus commuter, but we also have private trips. So if someone says, I want to take the entire taxi, Before we came along, you couldn't do that. You had to know a friend that has a taxi to book a private taxi. Now with our system, anyone can go on and you can book the entire taxi. Maybe you might want to go in Cape Town, people like going wine tasting or to the beach. Don't know what people do in Joburg. But now you can go. You can. It might be a corporate function you want to go to as a group. It might be this group is going to somewhere else. Maybe some of the gamers want to go to a gaming event. You can now book the entire shuttle for yourself, entire taxi for yourself. And that we charge a bit more on than what you do, because we pick you up at your house and drop you off at the event. And the taxi drivers that have found out about this, we also haven't been marketing too much, because we also understand we need to match supply and demand. So business-wise, we have to be clever about this. If we onboarded everybody at the same time, they'll be complaining and say, where's the work? Yeah. And if we onboarded too much work at the same time, they'll say, but I'm booking this thing, but I can't get anywhere. So we have to keep that balance strategically of, do we have enough customers and do we have enough drivers? So we made a waiting list for drivers and made a waiting list for customers to make sure we can keep that balance. Yeah.
That's great that you thought about that, because you could ramp up and scale on the one side and not meet demand on the other. So I like that you thought about that. And has the company been purely bootstrapped thus far, or is there any funding that has sort of plowed into the company?
Okay, when we started off, bro, we had to put what we could together as founders and as a team. So we still, I would say, still bootstrapped. We have to spare every cent. There's no, even money that's come in from investment, we can't be blowing it. We need to count every cent in that aspect. Money has come in from investors, not that much, but we haven't opened up an actual investment round. We've had a friends and family round, if I would say. So we self-invested, people, friends and family. But the big thing, and I would advise people with startups, it's good to get investment, but don't go to your VCs and your big investment firms. First of all, they're probably not going to give you a lot of money up front, but get your proof of concept first. The better your system works, the more you'll be able to prove and get investment. So we're in that space now. We've proven now that it works. We're in this space of scaling now. That's why we also come into Josie to look at the opportunities here. Scale the business up, then you open up your funding round to get investment. So we plan to do a funding round in December for next year.
That's pretty awesome. I like that you guys bootstrapped and didn't open up too early. It also sort of teaches you all the dynamics of the business before you ramp up. Yeah, I've always thought funding is easier in Cape Town and the business is in Joburg. Would you say that's the case?
I can't compare it because I haven't come to Joburg to raise funds yet, or no one in Joburg has said, here we go, we want to fund your business. Where it's also, I feel like with something like this as a startup, it's really a case of your network and how much people you know. And I, for instance, know more people in Cape Town than what I do in Joburg, so it was easier for me to raise funds in Cape Town. It also needs to depend on who are you trying to raise money from and what will the money be used for. So don't just raise money for the sake of money, but raise, especially as a startup, raise money for the sake of the network. To say, I'm taking money from one person, perhaps in your case, you're in media. I'm taking money from a media company because there's more plugs in media. I'm taking money from a billboard company because there's more platforms in advertising. So there's a link. And if it is that maybe in Joburg, the biggest billboard company is in Joburg, then go there. And if it's the case that in Cape Town, it might be the biggest media company's head office in Cape Town, then go there. It's more a case of making sure that where you get your money aligns with what your purpose is and what your business does, and find that market.
That's a very good answer. And I'm sitting here thinking that the taxi industry is sort of, you come to Joburg and most of the taxis that you'd find culture specific. People that own the taxis, people that are driving the taxis, mostly are from one domination, right? You go to the Northwest region, one domination. You go to the Western Cape, the same. Is it difficult for you guys to infiltrate those different designations because of culture, or is it easy for you guys to just walk in and say, I have this cool platform, it's meant to digitalize what you guys do, it's meant to bring safety, security, and all of that, and do you get buy-in easy, going to all these places? I know you are only coming to Joburg now, but is it something that you've considered as a potential challenge?
Yeah, so I think, with the cultural differences, we try to bridge that by offering and extending services. Like for example, if you take two cultures and one culture economically might be more stronger than the next, and where that culture that is not economically strong is lacking, we might step in and say, look, we can actually offer you, vehicle finance, and look at that and explore different, avenues just to bring them closer. So I don't think it necessarily would be a challenge culturally. Yeah.
From my side, I'm not even going to consider this from a business point of view, but just as a people point of view. If I meet someone and I can't connect, I can't connect. So how do I expect to work with you? And that's not the case of just the simplest, the easiest connection is culture. And that's the first thing. But the next connection is me as a person and you as another person. So that's how it happens. For us to be in Joburg, we were invited here. We didn't decide out of our own, okay, let's go to Joburg and see what happens. Sintako, the government asked us to come through because they saw what we're doing in Cape Town and wants to bring us through. I would say in Cape Town for us it was easy because Nabeel's in the taxi space, Intia's in the taxi space. This is people they grew up with. I've got friends and family that's friends with my parents that's in the taxi space. So it was easy for us to get in. But in this case now, we're strangers. But if they're the ones inviting us, it means it's not about the difference in culture, but how do we work together now based on, like Nabeel suggested, what we have to offer.
And it speaks to partnerships, right? I mean, Santaco bringing you guys here, as a body, they make the conversation easier for you guys once you, sort of on board or present or pitch your idea to even taxi owners, right? What would you say other potential partners that you guys are looking for, potentially when you're here or in the not so distant future?
Go for it.
Well, I'm looking for partners with distribution. So looking at how we can get access to more people. So he can come partner with you and say, hey, more people know about this because we can build the most amazing thing. But if nobody knows about it, what's the point? So we want to get access to distribution for commuters. From driver distribution via Sintaco. But what we've also noticed works for us in Cape Town is brand visibility. We go out to people that have no idea what we are, but they see the stickers on the taxis. They see the branding, they see us in the news, or they see some media things about us, and they say, I've seen that somewhere, but what is that? So that's, I guess, visibility and partners. The other thing, from the business point of view, we want to look at partnerships. From the commercial side, partnerships is corporates, perhaps, like where are customers spending, where are drivers spending? Because if we can look at the mass of the taxi space, and how do we reduce cost? Those are things that we can look at this entire ecosystem of how do we create more value for our commuters and more value for our drivers and more value for the owners if we can group people together. One thing we noticed before Loop came into the space is that everyone's operating in the taxi space. They've got the taxis, they've got their drivers, but in isolation. But if you came as a group, and that's what why Sintaco is a great body, because they pull that together and say, together we're more powerful. And that means I can go to a place and say, give us a deal on these vehicles. Give us a deal on home financing. Give us a deal on buying food at your store because I've got all these people. So that's the kind of things that if people are out there thinking, I want to tap into this 15 million rides per day. There's over 400,000 taxi drivers. There's over 8 million commuters in South Africa using public transport. Majority of people are using taxis as their mode of transport in South Africa. So if you want to get into that market, we allow access using our digital footprint. Because before us, a commuter didn't have a digital footprint. They were paying by cash. They were off the grid. And now using our system, using our Yoba and using other text-based platforms, you're now able to get into this market.
I think that, we're not specific with who we really want to partner with. If it's beneficial for our drivers or our riders, we're going to go and try and partner with you. I think just last week I was in Cape Town CBD, and then I saw this really cool thing, clientele perks. So clientele would have nothing to do with taxi industry, but we don't see it that way. We would see it as these perks. We could offer that perks to our drivers and incentivize certain things. So I think when it comes to partnerships and building it, it's limitless.
I guess when you look at it that way, I mean, you know, in terms of who you can partner with, it's really a wide. You can cast your net as wide as you want. You know, making that example with clientele and, you know, what they offer as a service and basically what your drivers need. You know, it's something. It could be a marriage that could well benefit the drivers and, you know, the owners as well. Because at the end of the day, like you said, there's no UIF, there's no retirement annuity, there's no, and some of these products, you know, you get in these insurance companies. So I like that you guys are thinking, you know, to the future in terms of how you want to grow the platform. But, you know, my last question would be, what should users expect in the not so distant future in terms of features, in terms of any announcements? I know you almost slipped your tongue earlier and gave us an exclusive, but yeah, what would you share, you know, as features that we can expect in the future?
Okay, sure. One feature I can definitely mention now is our safety feature, our OmniResponse feature. So we're doing a partnership with another company, and if anything happens on your trip, because we know the location of the driver, we're able to look at who are the closest private security or health facilities in the area, and they'll get pinged to say emergency over here. So unlike a usual one where you're with a private, if you're with a specific tracking company, they only work with one company, which means if they far out, another security company will just drive past because they won't dispatch to you. So our thing is, how do we get the quickest response? Because we do know things happen on a taxi. And it could be an accident, could be whatever. So you need to get response. So that's one feature coming soon. There's other things we're exploring around insurance. So we know how taxis drive. Not disputing that they're the best drivers in the world, but they get you there. Great. And sometimes as a commuter, you might fear for your life driving in a taxi. What we've understood by the community is that a lot of the taxi commuters, they're usually the breadwinners of the family, but they have either no insurance or they're underinsured. So we're looking at doing insurance just for the trip. Like if I get into this taxi, if something happens to me, is my life covered? Is my family secure? Is something happening? So that's one thing. It's going to come down the line eventually. And then another thing we're about to release soon is fuel. So we're doing a fuel partnership with a certain petrol supplier. And just like I mentioned, collectively, we're actually able to collectively purchase the fuel and then have the fuel at a way less rate. Because right now, when we ask taxi drivers what do they get when they go to a petrol station, now sometimes they give them a Coke and a pie. But I mean, that's ridiculous. Most of the fuel, like there's so much fuel being purchased by the taxi industry. Why is the taxi industry not making anything from that? Or why is the taxi industry still paying the same as everybody else? So that's one thing that's going to be probably the soonest, the quickest one after the safety one is the fuel one that's going to be launched.
That's awesome, and I think this is a game changer in my view. The more you speak, the more questions I have in terms of the possibilities that you can find on the app. You know, you speak about fuel. I look at government departments where there's fuel cards for, you know, for government vehicles. You could do the same as well, you know, where you know exactly how much fuel you're going to spend there based on the budget that you allocate on the app. But anyway, like that's just my mind running wild. I really, you know, sort of like the idea, but how do people get sort of onboarded or get access to the app?
Let me actually give you something now from us. I'll send you a link, and all of your viewers, listeners, I'll give you guys a $50 voucher from Loop to be able to use the service. I know we're not everywhere yet, but you're still able to use it when you're there. So either if you come to Cape Town, you can use it, and I'm sure after this week when you find out when we're going to be doing things in Joburg and Durban, then your customers, your listeners, your viewers, I don't know, your subscribers, I don't know what to call them, but your consumers, your media consumers, all of you guys, $50 for you. You can get us on Instagram, Loop Taxi app. You can get us on LinkedIn, Loop. You just type in Loop Taxi app. That's the main handle for that. Even if you give us a Google Loop Taxi, you'll pop up there. Our website is looptaxi.co.za, and then you'll be able to book your rides, you book your private shuttles on the website. If you do need to do, like you want to contact me perhaps, I'll give my email address. It's Jamie, Jamie, at loopapp, loopapp.co.za. Cool.
That's Loop, ladies and gentlemen, on Matlazana Tech. Thank you guys for honoring the interview, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side.